Hello students, this is CA Pragnesh Kanabar over here with the discussion of CA Intermediate Auditing and Assurance RTP for November 21, now December 21 attempt. Alright, so we are going to divide our discussion into two parts as the RTP is divided into two parts. The discussion is going to be very simple. Alright, we'll just give the heading so that you don't forget this is audit RTP. The discussion is going to be very simple. One is on the amendments part, amendments, additions, some adjustments in your material, and the other one is the questionnaire part. Alright, where we'll be discussing the questions which are given in the RTP, some interesting set of MCQs and stuff which are given over there. Alright, without wasting time, on the amendment part, academic update part. If you see, they have printed academic update for chapter 5, fraud and responsibilities of auditor in this regard, and then chapter 9, audit of items of financial statements, only one little amendment, and then chapter 10, company audit. For chapter 5 and chapter 10, company audit, chapter 5, fraud, and chapter 10, company audit, they have printed the whole PDF. I mean the whole chapter. They have reprinted it. Why this reprinting has been done of the whole chapter? Is the whole chapter amended? So whatever you have studied, is it of no importance? No, no, no. Boss, whatever you have studied still remains relevant. Two things for December 21 attempt. One is Companies Amendment Act 2020 has been incorporated in the discussion. So few minor changes, only 4 or 5 changes of Companies Amendment Act 2020 which they have put over here, because only those many changes are there with respect to audit provisions. And in their own material, they had printed the original material, the book, that whole book which is there. They had printed CARO 2020, whereas for December 21 attempt, they have put CARO 2016 and they have said that CARO 2016 will be applicable. So they just reprinted the topic incorporating these discussions. So there are only two things that you should be worried about. One is, are you aware about CARO 2016? For CARO 2016 discussions, I have already issued a video which is there on my YouTube channel, discussions on CARO 2016 for December 21 attempt. It was recently shot and uploaded. And for Companies Amendment Act 2020, which has been incorporated over here, we will just discuss it out very quickly. All right. So do not worry at all. Okay. The students are worried, oh my God, what are the amendments? I mean, why the whole chapter has been printed? Then, oh my God, it's a 145-page RTP. I can understand students' point of view also. All right, I'm just scrolling through the chapter so that you understand that, boss, most of the things are the same that you have discussed, that you would have discussed wherever you have taken coaching or whether you have done self-study. All right, if you see, most of the things are the same. I have highlighted the changes which are there. Yeah. So fraud reporting, section 143 subsection 12, you know there is a duty to report fraud to the central government. Of course, I'm not explaining this whole duty over here. We are focusing on the changes which are there so that the relevant part why you are on this video is discussed. All right. So the changes, the amendments are with respect to the penalties, the fine that needs to be paid if you do not follow this section of fraud reporting to the central government. The auditor of the company, the cost auditor, the secretarial auditor, if they don't follow this, then in that case, in case of a listed company, be liable to a penalty of 5 lakh rupees. And in case of any other company, be liable to a penalty of 1 lakh rupees. That is the discussion over here. Listed company 5 lakh, any other company 1 lakh. All right, relax. That is what has changed. So please ensure that you are doing this. Then there is a discussion on CARO 2016 clause 10. I've already discussed that in my CARO video. Clause 10 talks about fraud reporting. A little detailed discussion is required for this. So that particular detailed discussion has been done in my CARO video. All right. So done. That is it for your chapter 5. Don't worry ahead. Don't worry too much about it. All right. What else? What else? After that, you will see one small discussion. They printed the whole PDF only instead of giving the changes. So students are little worried, nothing else. Okay. Then you will see one small discussion on audit of items of financial statements. Just I think you would have been told this by your company law professor also. So sweat equity shares which the company issues for the class of shares which have already been issued, sweat equity shares. There are many conditions to issuing sweat equity shares. From that, one condition has been eliminated, omitted by Companies Amendment Act 2020. So look at this. Clause C. Not less than 1 year has at the date of such issue elapsed since the date on which the company has commenced the business. So this condition which was there, that at least 1 year should have elapsed since the date on which company commenced the business, only after that sweat equity shares can be issued. This particular clause has been omitted, so relax on that. All right. Okay, so this point, please be careful. Next, yeah, you see this company audit discussions, all the discussions of section 139 to 148 almost remain the same. There are some changes that we need to discuss over here. So I'm scrolling through the whole PDF so that you realize that most of the things will remain the same. Don't worry about it. All right, students, in case of resignation by the auditor, you know that auditor has to submit form ADT 3 within 30 days of resignation, that is section 140 subsection 2. All right. Now, with respect to this particular point, if auditor does not fulfill it, if the auditor does not comply with this requirement, there are penalties. Now, these penalties have been changed n number of times. So, for the umpteenth time, there is one more change. And Companies Amendment Act 2020. So, in case of failure, that means not submitting form ADT 3, the auditor shall be liable to a penalty of 50,000 rupees or the remuneration of auditor, whichever is less. So, minimum rupees 50,000 or auditor's remuneration, whichever is less. Okay. And in case of continuing failure, see, so basically within 30 days, you are supposed to submit this form ADT 3. So let us say if you go on 31st day, then they will charge this much penalty. All right. And they will finish it off 50,000 or the remuneration of auditor, whichever is less. But in the case of continuing failure, with further penalty of 500 rupees for each day after the first day, that means 32nd day onwards, they will start counting rupees 500 per day after the first, during which the failure continues, subject to maximum of 2 lakh rupees. So this plus 500 rupees per day, both of them taken together, maximum of 2 lakh rupees. Earlier this was 5 lakh, now this has come to 2 lakh rupees. That's it. That is the amendment, but I just explained the provision, otherwise it was not possible just to explain the amendment. All right, okay. I am expecting this in correct or incorrect kind of questions or MCQ kind of questions. I am expecting this in the paper. Be careful over here. All right. Now, the problem is that this answer again has not been amended. A little bit of clerical errors, human errors are there everywhere. So over here also. So be careful that this maximum, it goes up to rupees 2 lakhs and not 5 lakhs now. So this is one change. All right. What else? What else? Okay, we'll continue the discussion. Rotation, everything remains the same as you would have discussed from the earlier modules. Now, we go ahead. Okay. Then we will see that penalties ka discussion hai. There is a discussion of penalties where there are some changes where you need to be focused upon. I am assuming that at least Companies Amendment Act 2020, before that you would have done the changes which were incorporated before that. All right. Okay. CARO 2016 as applicable to you. Okay. Then this 143, section 143.12, if you don't report the fraud to the central government, again they have printed over here, but that was discussed in Chapter 5, not an issue at all. All right. Then Caro 16 that I have highlighted, that boss, this amendment is there. I'm scrolling through the whole PDF. I know it takes some time out of this video, but at least you will be comfortable that there is no other problem. Okay. Then they have done some discussions over here. Everything remains the same. Straight away then in section 147, penalties and consequences, there are some points that have changed. All right. So section 147 of Companies Act 2013 prescribes the following punishments for contravention. Now, the section 147 subsection 1. All right. So this particular subsection tells you that what are the punishments prescribed for the company for violating the sections, and what are the punishments prescribed, for the employees, officers for violating the sections. Now look at this. Company shall be punishable with fine which shall not be less than 25,000 rupees, but which may extend to 5 lakh rupees. This was earlier also, it remained the same. Here there is some change. Every officer of the company, all right, officer of the company who is in default shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year, or with fine which shall not be less than 10,000 rupees, but which may extend to 1 lakh rupees. Earlier it was or with both. So it was imprisonment or fine or both. This both has been eliminated. So either an imprisonment which may extend to 1 year, or a fine which shall be minimum 10,000 rupees and which may extend to 1 lakh rupees. That's it. Not both. Not both. All right. So that was the point. There is one more change which they have. I think they forgot to incorporate it in this particular subsection 2 143. These numbers have been eliminated, but it's okay since they have not incorporated it. We don't talk too much about it. All right. So just to make you feel comfortable again, I'll just open up this PDF of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. They talk about Companies Amendment Act 2020. Right, there are so many amendments. I think majorly our law professors would have discussed about it. But in audit, that is section 139 to 148 range. So this was discussed, Form ADT 3 instead of 5 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees maximum fine. Then not reporting fraud to the central government, these penalties. Then 147, these are the changes. All right. Actually, students, there are in this 147 subsection 1, that is why I showed this specifically to you. In 147 subsection 1, actually, even these words have changed, That is one controversy. Now, what needs to be done? You see this imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year for officer of the company. All right. I explained what they have given. So this actually has been omitted. Imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year, this has been omitted. So if you see over here, the words imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year or shall be omitted. So these many words are omitted. And then 1 lakh rupees or both, they have said both needs to be removed and it will be 1 lakh. So basically now, officer of the company who is in default just has fine minimum 10,000 rupees and maximum rupees 1 lakh. But there are some selective amendments which have been implemented over here. That's the big problem. All right. So what are we going to do? As simple as that. Institute many a times comes out with a separate PDF. That is why I was waiting for my video to be short. But now we are in the first week of October, so I thought that at least now I'll give the video for RTP. Many students have messaged me, sir, why you are not making the video on RTP? But there are some reasons, this is one of them. So Institute many a times issues a corrigendum PDF where they say that okay, sorry, there was some changes at the last moment which needs to be done even after RTP is issued. Then finally they may issue a corrigendum PDF for such rectification of errors. and as of now we don't see it. All right, so just a minute. We don't see a corrigendum PDF separately over here. Normally they issue it over here, not even over here. Neither a corrigendum to RTP, I don't see it separately. So in that case, if there is no corrigendum PDF issued, then you will have to go with what they have said over here. All right, just go with what they have printed over here, because it is obvious that in their suggested answers also, they will not contradict their own material. But if a corrigendum PDF is issued, naturally stay connected on this channel, stay connected with me. I will be giving an update on corrigendum PDF also. So this is one particular point which you need to be worried of. All right. One more time, no corrigendum PDF, you go with this content. If they issue a corrigendum PDF, follow the new amended content. All right. So I hope you are done with this point. Now, there are some more problems over here which needs to be discussed. This question bank is the same which is there in the module that we normally discuss in the class also. Okay. After this, you will see discussions of their questions. And I'm very happy with the level of case study questions that they have set. Normally, when you talk about, uh, integrated case study based MCQs which they ask in the paper, at that point of time, in inter-CA level, it was like, bro, don't read the case study, just look at the questions over here, and normally you will be able to answer. But I am seeing this since last one attempt or so, they have changed the trend, and in the RTPs, MTPs, they are coming out with good integrated case study based MCQs, where they are actually, requiring the student to read the case study and then answer. All right. Because sometimes what happens, there are just some theory MCQs below the case studies which can be answered without even looking at the case study. But sometimes questions like these state whether appointment of CA Rajender is correct in law or not. For that, you will have to read the case study. All right, so the questions like these, you will have to read the case study. Now, students, over here, chalo. What you should do is you should always have a glance at the questions, like how I did. So you understand, okay, auditor's appointment, whether to create provision or not, recognizing accounting of dividend and long-term borrowings accounting, what needs to be done, which of the following statement is true, intangible accounting. All right, so one question on appointment of auditor, and the other questions are testing your accounts knowledge. This much you have it in your mind. Now you can read the case study because you have it in your mind that, okay, I have to focus on these things. Otherwise, there are some extra parts in case studies, which are never required to be analyzed in great details. You may end up losing out your time. So Miss Ria was among the promoters who set up a public company by the name Aksham Limited. The company appointed C.A. Rajender as the auditor of Aksham Limited. C.A. Rajender is the brother of one of the directors of Aksham Limited. After setting up of the company had a dispute. Okay, so C.A. Rajender is the brother of one of the directors of Aksham Limited. So tell me, is C.A. Rajender's appointment valid in the eyes of law? No. It is not valid, as relative of director is not allowed to be the auditor of the company. Where is it given? Section 141, subsection 3, clause F. If your relative is a director or KMP in the company, you cannot be the auditor. All right. So answers are over here. Next. What was next? Something with respect to court case. Okay, let us see then. After setting up of the company had a dispute with one customer in the year 1920 who took the company to the court. There are probable chances that company will have to shell out rupees 50 lakhs as compensation, but the case is likely to be finalized in the year 21-22. So the case may be finalized later, but there are some chances that company will have to shell out rupees 50 lakhs over here. Let us see that. CA Rajender considers the fact that Aksham Limited has a present obligation. Present obligation is there. It is probable that an outflow of resources embodying economic benefits will be required. So can I say all the provision related conditions are being satisfied over here? I'm so sure you're remembering your accounts professors over here and not me. Will be required to settle the obligation, and that a reliable estimate rupees 50 lakhs can be made as the amount of obligation. Now what needs to be done? In this case, will you advise them to create provision? Will you advise them to create a provision? Yes, sir. You will advise them to create a provision? Great. And they will give you 1 mark also over there. All right. Next. Look at the question. Keep looking at the question. There was one discussion about dividend accounting. All right. Look at this. Aksham Limited declared a dividend of rupees 10 per equity share on 10th April 2021. The financial statements were approved on 30th June 2021. Aksham Limited took loan of rupees 65 lakhs. Dividend declared 10 per equity share on 10th April 21. And you are auditing this company for financial year 2021. All right. Aksham Limited declared a dividend of 10 per equity share on 10th April. So after the year end dividend has been declared. Why I'm saying every single step that I'm thinking? Because I'm just telling you that as a student what you're supposed to do. The financial statements were approved as on 30th June. So 31st March 21 is the year end date. 10th April 21 is the dividend declared. Whereas financial statements were approved as on 30th June 21. Tell me something. If a dividend is declared after the balance sheet date, dividend is declared after the balance sheet date, will you count it as an adjusting event? No. All right, it has happened before the financial statements were approved. Are you going to count it as an adjusting event? Look at this. Aksham Limited is supposed to take with regards to dividend declaration, the treatment of dividend declaration. What needs to be done? What is the action with respect to dividend declaration that needs to be taken over here? Recognize dividend as a liability, disclose the amount of dividend, or both A and B. Come on, tell me your accounting knowledge. Look at this. Disclose the amount of the dividend. Disclosure required over here for financial statements, financial year ending 31st March 21. And I'm so sure that you remember this from your accounts. All right. Next, because you know that at least a disclosure needs to be given for that. Aksham Limited took loan of rupees 65 lakhs from Saksham Bank, for a period of 10 years. The loan amount was guaranteed by Mr. Pramod, one of the directors of Aksham Limited. All right. So director has become the guarantor over here. The loan was completely secured against the fixed assets of the company. Aksham Limited drew designs of one of the products of the company, and this product constituted 90% sales of the company. All right. So one adjustment is about the loan amount. And then they drew designs of one of the products, and this product has constituted 90% sales. The designs of the product were such that sale of the company will increase every year for the next 5 years. Basically, now they are talking about intangibles. Aksham Limited booked the designs of the company at value of rupees 1 crore in the books of the accounts of the company as intangibles at its cost. All right. So the booking of the patents, the designs, how it needs to be done, and the discussion of the loans that Aksham Limited has taken. State the disclosures Aksham Limited is required to make with respect to long-term borrowings taken from Saksham Bank. So this is all about whether you know your company final accounts properly or not, whether you know your Schedule 3 properly or not. All right. Secured loan from Saksham Bank. Fixed assets are secured against the loan. Loan of rupees 65 lakhs is guaranteed by the director. Repayment terms of the loan. Are you supposed to disclose all of them? The more the disclosures, better the financial statement presentation. Disclose all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get on the dance floor. So company final accounts knowledge, if you have over here, you score marks, as simple as that. This is basically your chapter 9 audit of items of financial statements, where the more knowledge you have of company accounts, the better off you are over there. Okay. Next, with respect to intangible. Can company who has developed these designs and in future, it is going to give them more revenue, can company book such kind of intangible at cost? They've booked it at cost. Have they booked it at cost or they have valued at rupees 1 crore? At its cost. Do you really think that they can book this? Have they purchased it from someone? They have created it. This is a self-generated thing. They have purchased it from someone. What needs to be done over here? A, design whatever cost they have incurred. They may not show the real value as its amount, but at least whatever cost they have incurred correctly booked by the company. All right, so these were all related to your accounting knowledge, accounting for intangibles and stuff. If you know it, you score marks over here. Only one question was actually from audit subject, where they were talking about whether the appointment of auditor itself is valid or not. All right, next, case scenario 2. Can you just straight away look at the questions, please? All right, section 5 of the Central Act, Cooperative Society. Cooperative Society. Society, Cooperative Society. Society, Cooperative Society, Cooperative Society. Cooperative Society. All right. So if you have left audit of cooperative society at option, then there is a problem, students. I strictly recommend that you should revise the topic of cooperative society before solving this case study. Or if you already know it, you can still try it. But these all the points that have been asked over here are technical points, as I just glanced through this. And I already have a video on my YouTube channel about audit of cooperative societies. You can look at it and you will see that you can easily answer these questions. All right, everyone over here. So they have given a lot of discussions about cooperative society. But as I told you, you should have a glance at the questions. You will see that such kind of case studies, normally straight away through the questions you can answer. According to section 5 of the Central Act, what is the maximum percentage of total number of shares and what is the maximum value of shareholding that RAS and associates were concerned with so as to watch any breach relating to holding of shares? So this is straight away, if you remember the provision, you write it. So there is a restriction on value of shareholding and the number of shares that you can hold, and that is 20% of total number of shares or value of shareholding up to rupees 1000. All right, so as you can see over here, D. Now this full question is pure audit question. Next, according to section 29 of the Central Act, so basically when a society wants to give loan, loan to its own members, loans to outsiders, what are the restrictions? Best Tea House cannot give a loan to any person other than, so to whom it is allowed? Basically a cooperative society can give loan to its own members and to another registered cooperative society, but to another registered cooperative society loan can be given only after taking the prior approval from the registrar, from the concerned registrar. All right, so they can give loan to a member, and with the special sanction of registrar they can give loan to another registered society. All right, so if you see over here, B point. Done. So basically this is, if you remember the provisions, you write it, as simple as that. Then in audit of cooperative society, there is one another question which talks about special features of audit of special features of a cooperative society. Over there is a specific point on examination of overdue debts, where students may just by heart some head points by some code word, but they have asked the question from the content part of it and the main content part. So when you are examining overdue debts, there is one requirement to report overdue debts for a period from 6 months to 5 years and more than 5 years. This is very simple. You know the point, you write it. 6 months to 5 years and more than 5 years. So these things are there in my textbook also, where we have discussed these things. All right, for the students, for my in-house students who are looking at it, we have it all in our book also, provided if you have studied it and looked at the videos. All right, now students, let us move ahead. So basically this is an indication, don't take lightly the topic of audit of cooperative society. Next, to whom does RAS and associates report the few transactions noticed during the audit? Few transactions noticed during the audit. Now again, if you see, they have asked question from this. So whenever during the audit, if you report some few transactions which may be a lot of irregular nature, and you have developed doubts, then there is a point of special report to registrar during the course of audit. If auditor notices that there are some serious irregularities, then it can be reported to the registrar. So registrar of cooperative societies, to them it can be reported. That is why if you see fourth A point. Now, mistakes over here. Mistakes having an impact on the profitability of the society were pointed out by RAS and Associates, as it had a consequential effect on the financial position of the society. In which of the following submissions was this information included? Actually, beta, technically speaking, I don't know. First, I'll just give a brief of this point because I don't want you to be like completely blank over here of what discussions are going on. All right. So normally these are the provisions that which I have given it as a note to my audit report discussions in cooperative society. An auditor of a cooperative society in the applicable state has to answer two sets of questionnaires called as audit memos. First set deals with general nature and is applicable to all types of societies such as urban banks, consumer stores, credit societies, etc. Basically, audit memos are nothing but the various questionnaires which have been asked, on which auditor needs to respond. Second set is specifically for a particular type of society which will be handed over by the registrar, and the auditor needs to report on that. The audit report can be given in a narrative form. Narrative form is a proper description form which is submitted by the auditor addressed to the chairman of the society. Now that particular report contains two parts. Part 1 of the report, part 2. Part 1 talks about all the comparative financial position and all the financial analysis impact on profitability, and part 2 talks about observations of routine nature. So this is also over here in the institute's book. Yes. Given to the chairman, para 1 and part 2 of the report. All right. Now, para 1 is all about the, look at this, mistakes having an impact on the profitability of the society should be pointed out in part 1, as it has got a consequential effect on the financial position of the society. All right. So, students, this is reported in part 1 of the report. Now, if you see in the RTP, so part 1 of the report or part 2 of the report. So of course it needs to be reported in part 1 of the report. I've given fifth point B, part 2. Actually part 2, I'll show it from the institute book only, as observations of routine nature. And if you see their observations, impact on profitability having a consequential effect on financial position. So it should be para 1, part 1. I'm basically expecting a separate corrigendum PDF only to the RTP. All right. Sometimes there are human errors, they may commit a mistakes, but we are supposed to cross check with the points which they have given in the module and the applicable provisions. So over here, actually it should be included in part 1 and not part 2. That's the problem. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Now, students, there are some general MCQs over here which needs to be looked after. That these are individual MCQs. So I hope that there is a wake-up call that you would have revised audit of cooperative society. All right. Now look at this. General MCQs. To jointly audit books of accounts of WZ Limited for the financial year 2021, two different firms of chartered accountants, namely MH and Associates and NR and Associates, were appointed. Then MH and NR together are called as which auditors? Dancing auditors, joint auditors. No, they will be called as joint auditors of the company. Look at this. General MCQs, first D point. I think these students will answer very quickly. Mr. H and his team members carefully watched the whole process of counting of finished wooden doors by the employees of Bottom Limited. This is an example of which procedure. So when you check the condition of it, then and when you count on your own, that is inspection. But when you see the counting which is being done by others, that is observation.
All right, so that is why you see B over here. Next, under section 43H of the Central Act, who can frame rules prescribe? Central Act, which act? That also they are not saying in general MCQ. That is about cooperative society. Who can frame rules prescribing the books of accounts to be kept by a cooperative society? So as you can see over here, books of accounts, basically government has left the prescription of those rules to the state government. I'm just showing it from my notes for my now students. State government can frame rules prescribing the books of accounts to be kept. All right. Okay. So state government can frame the rules. For others, you can see this in the module of the institute also. Now, next, all right, here are the questions. Dash is the threat which occurs when auditors are deterred, means auditors are stopped from acting objectively with an adequate degree of professional skepticism. When you stop the auditor from acting with professional skepticism by putting some pressure on the auditor or creating some insecurity, where you stop that person, intimidation, threat. All right. So you know that there are various threats to independence. I've in my class I also give them a code, sacred games. You have seen, sacred SEF. So sacred S for self-review threat, and then SEF, self-interest threat, advocacy threat, intimidation threat, familiarity threat. We have discussed the content, we have discussed the examples, and I've said this. If you look at my video on independence, this is basically for the in-house students who have seen it. So I've said this n number of times that the examples given by the institute, over there can also be asked in MCQs. I have marked that particular question's favorite for MCQs and correct or incorrect. All right. Next. So basically you cannot leave anything in option over here. The persons with responsibility for overseeing the strategic direction of the entity, the ones who provide the strategic direction to the entity, the topmost authorities, they are nothing but, and the ones who are answerable, they are called as nothing else but those charged with governance, TCWG. All right, so you will see the balance answers over here has been tallied. All right, accordingly you have this discussion of correct or incorrect. State with reasons, in short, whether following statements are true or false. Okay. First, one of the objectives of written representation, SFIT written representation, we ask management to give it in writing to us. Yeah, is to support other audit evidence. I have said this on the top of my voice, that written representation is always a supporting evidence and not only a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence on its own. It is just a supporting evidence. So very much correct. But you have to write reasons. This point is given in essay 580. That is one of the supporting evidence. You can give them the definition of written representation also. The game in correct incorrect is about what reasons you are writing. Look at this. Yeah. So they are explaining what is the objective of the auditor over here, and the main line that why it is a supporting evidence and why not a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. It cannot be considered as a substitute for other audit evidence. Yes, sir. Okay. Next, computer software, which is integral part of the related hardware, should be treated as fixed asset. Achha, if it is an integral part of the related hardware, are you going to treat it as a fixed asset or intangible asset, the computer software? Very much yes, sir. Yes, sir. Where you have written this, where you have heard about this, AS26 intangible assets. So you realize up till now, 4 MCQs, then 1 over here, I mean 2 marks over here. So around 6 to 8 marks, which you will see in further paper also that there will be some impact. So if you see this paper wise, then yes, it is creating some impact on your mark sheet. So your accounts knowledge is imperative, very much necessary when you are going into the audit paper. All right. Next, the auditor appointed under section 139. Company audit, I know, is your favorite. You will write correct only. I mean, you will give correct answers only. But whether you are writing the right reasons or not, that is important. The auditor appointed under section 139 may be removed from his office may be removed from his office before the expiry of the term by only board resolution. No, no, sir, there's a board resolution, then application to the central government, then central government gives the sanction, then meeting of the members, over there auditor should be given reasonable opportunity of being heard. Then if a special resolution is passed, then in that case auditor can be removed. But where is this given? So this statement is incorrect. Where is this discussion given? Under the topic of removal of auditor, section 140 subsection 1. All right. So, sir, where are we supposed to stop? How much are we supposed to write? At least in short, you are supposed to explain these points. See, they've explained these points. All right. Yes, sir. Okay. Next, the matter of DTC, difficulty, time, cost involved itself, is in itself a valid basis for auditor to omit an audit procedure. I have said this n number of times that in inherent limitations, this is one of the most sensitive point, that just because of the difficulty, time and cost, you cannot omit a procedure for which there is no alternative. If there is no alternative, then you have, no matter the difficulty, no matter the time or cost, you will have to perform that procedure. All right. So of course, this is incorrect, because as per SA 200, we are expected to obtain reasonable assurance at least. All right. So they have just written the reverse of it. But now look at this. They have said that how this can be achieved. Even though there is difficulty, time, cost, with appropriate planning, you can ensure that you have sufficient time and resources available. Okay. And there has to be a balance struck between cost and the benefit of the information, the value of the information. So they are writing it, but the main line is this. All right. Yes, sir. Okay. Next. The auditor must include in audit documentation superseded drafts of the working papers and financial statements, notes that reflect incomplete or preliminary thinking. What is superseded draft? Redundant, no more relevant, because you have already got another information which eliminates the requirement of the previous working paper. Like let us say you had a set of financial statements, you asked for, you communicated them the rectification, they give you a revised set. All right, or they gave you a response which eliminates your earlier query. So superseded drafts of working papers, incomplete or preliminary thinking, these things can be eliminated. All right, must include, these things can be deleted. Now where exactly is these discussions done? If you see the discussion of assembly of audit file in SA 230 chapter 3 audit documentation, you will find these discussions that are done over there. All right, so this particular point is incorrect. You can give a reference of SA 230 and say that these things are not required. These things can be deleted also. All right, be careful. Next, if the auditor assesses a ROMM, risk of material misstatement, regarding litigation or claims that have been identified, the auditor need not seek direct communication with entities external legal counsel. You can see chapter 3 audit documentation and evidence there in SA 501. I have discussed this particular point in litigation and claims, and I've said this on the top of my voice, that if you find a high ROMM for litigation and claims, where you think that there could be more litigation and claims, then in that case you must seek a direct communication with entities external legal counsel. So be careful over here. Next, collateral security refers to security offered by the borrower for bank finance or the one against which credit has been extended by the bank. All right, so you understood, no? Sixth point was incorrect. All right. Collateral security refers to the security offered by the borrower against which credit has been extended. Oh my God. That is the primary security, which is the main security. So if I've taken a home loan, let us say my home has been mortgaged, that's the primary security. My dad or my other relatives or friends or some other people have given guarantee, so that is a collateral. All right. This security is the principal security. No, incorrect. Now, this particular point is for the primary security. So either you can tell them that this is primary security, or you can tell them that collateral security is an additional security. So either which ways, explain it. I would say explain both the points. The first auditor or auditors of MSCS Multi-State Cooperative Society shall be appointed by the board within 1 month of the date of registration of the society. Very much perfect, correct. Because MSCS, the appointment of auditor, disqualification discussions over there are a little bit similar to company audit discussions. All right. So I hope that you are through with this. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. See, please check the reasons which they have given. Please check the reasons which they have given. What happens is that if you get your correct, incorrect right, you don't read the reasons, then all of a sudden in exams you are thinking, oh my God, how much am I supposed to write over here? That is what creates a lot of problems. All right. Students, after this, there is a discussion of all the theory questions which are coming up chapter wise. And do not worry, these questions are there, in the module question bank and stuff. If you have doubts for this question, you can get in touch with me through my app, and I will guide you on the points or the lines which you are not understanding for these set of particular questions. Don't worry about it. Currently what I will do is I'll quickly give you a briefing of these questions, all right, and where you can find it. So first, nature, objective and scope of audit chapter. The knowledge of human behavior is indeed very essential for an auditor so as to effectively discharge his duties. In chapter 1, there is a discussion on relationship of auditing with various disciplines, means with various other subjects. So there you will find it, all right. And this is behavioral science basically. So auditor needs knowledge of human behavior to deal with people. There you will find it. Okay. Next, few guiding principles which are behind safeguards to eliminate threats to auditor's independence. Don't develop a financial interest in the client. So basically, whatever the threats are there to the concept of independence, you should do the reverse of that. Don't do it. Right? So don't develop financial interest. Don't develop too familiar relationship with the client. Don't invest into the client's business or develop a business relationship. Ensure that you are able to maintain independence, integrity, objectivity. So these are the few guiding principles. You will find it in the concept of independence. All right. Next, the firm should establish policies and procedures designed to provide it with capabilities of reasonable assurance that it has sufficient personnel with the capabilities, competence, commitment to ethical principles. Discuss the personal issues addressed by such policies and procedures. So basically in essay 220, which has been discussed in the first chapter, there are various elements of quality control system. So you have these elements of LAHEM, leadership responsibilities, then ethical requirements, then human resource policies, engagement performance, M for monitoring. So this is particular point from human resource policies, where the firm needs to have policies for C4, P2, R, basically competence, capabilities, compensation, performance reviews, promotion, recruitment, everything that is not followed in this country. Next, there are practical and legal limitations on auditors' ability to obtain audit evidence. Explain giving examples. So this particular discussion is there in chapter 1, inherent limitations. So you know that there are various inherent limitations, FATO. So one is F for financial reporting, nature of financial reporting. There are estimates with uncertainty. Second one, A for audit procedures. All right. So audit procedures, the nature is such that there are practical legal limitations. Auditor does not have extensive legal power, so he has limited legal power. Plus the procedures that he is performing, at every stage there is a discussion with the management. So we cannot start investigation. So we need to ensure that we function only with the evidence at the hand. So that in that case, obviously there are some practical and legal limitations. Students, be careful of this point. All right. Okay. So they have said explain giving examples, which is also discussed in our videos. Next, audit strategy, planning and programming. So you have essay 300, 320 discussions over here, planning discussions and then materiality discussions. Let us see what they've asked. Nature, timing and extent of direction and supervision of the engagement team members may vary depending on various factors. Explain the factors. So when you want to plan the DSR of your team, direction, supervision and review, how you will direct them, how you will supervise them, how you will review them, that depends upon SARC. All right. So size of the entity, the area of the audit, the risk of material misstatement involved, and the competence, capabilities and stuff. Of course, we discuss these points in great details when the lectures are going on, but currently just giving you the highlight of where this has been discussed in our videos and where you can find it in the module. This itself is the point, planning the DSR of the team. Next, the advantages of planning. Very simple, plain vanilla answer, don't worry about it. You can just vomit the points over here. What could be considered material for all situations cannot be defined precisely, and an amount or transaction material in one situation may not be material in another situation. So basically tell them what is the concept of materiality, tell them why it is a relative term, tell them that it depends upon various factors, and you have to explain it to them. So now you keep on seeing the content over here, you will realize that these things we have discussed in our videos, lectures. All right. So you should not be worried about it. Just scrolled through it so that you can understand that this is a manageable content. Next, audit documentation and audit evidence. While doing audit of ABC Private Limited on the basis of sufficient and appropriate evidence, auditor comes to a conclusion that use of going concern basis of accounting is appropriate, but a material uncertainty exists. Discuss the implication for auditor's report. Now there is a big discussion on this particular point where auditor concludes that going concern accounting is appropriate, but there is a material uncertainty. Then in that case, auditor will ask management to provide some notes to accounts. What are those notes to accounts and stuff? That requires a detailed discussion. If management provides those notes to accounts, then auditor is expected to highlight it separately under material uncertainty related to going concern paragraph. If management do not provide those notes to accounts, then it can lead to a modified opinion. I'm assuming students over here that when you're looking at the RTP video, at least you have done some discussions, attended the lectures, and you have gone through the points. All right, all the concepts in great details are not being discussed over here. Stay connected with us. If you are my in-house students, you already have the videos. If you are not my in-house students, there are a lot of revision lectures which I'm going to upload on YouTube channel, so stay connected. All right. So if management provides adequate disclosure, in that case, you have to highlight it in material uncertainty related to going concern paragraph. If management does not provide adequate disclosure, then it will lead to a modified opinion. Next, give examples of financial events or conditions that individually or collectively may cast a significant doubt on entity's ability to continue as going concern. We discuss this as indicators of material uncertainty. That is where it has been discussed in the module also. Financial indicator, operating indicator, other indicator. Next, subsequent events. Explain those events and also define subsequent events. So tell them with examples, what are subsequent events, explain them and also define subsequent events. Also write auditor's objective over here. So definition of subsequent events and the explanation part is what they want with examples. All right, so you can see over here 7A is just indicators, and the discussion of what is adjusting event, non-adjusting event, all that is given over here. All right, okay. Next, question number 8. Auditor has a responsibility to perform audit procedures to identify, assess and respond to ROMM arising from entities' failure to appropriately account for related party relationship, transactions or balances. All right, so auditor has to perform risk assessment procedures, further procedures for this related party transactions and balances. So SA 550. All right, so it's a good RTP. They have tried to test on such essays which are actually favorite at final C level, 550, 60 and 70. During the audit, the auditor should maintain alertness for related party information while reviewing records and documents. He may inspect the records or documents that may provide information about related party relationship and transactions. Explain in detail with examples. I have said this at the top of my voice, shouting that this point is important in my in-house videos also. For this point, SA 550 related parties, we have discussed all the examples of such documents from where auditor can identify which parties are related parties. He may come across some new parties or transactions which were earlier not disclosed to him. All the creative discussions have been done about the records and documents. Next. So basically, I would expect you to buy out at least 3 to 4 examples from here. Next. So these examples they're talking about. All right. This question is also favorite at final CA. Chapter 4, risk assessment and internal control. Significant risk often relate to significant non-routine transactions. Okay. Or judgmental matters. Non-routine transactions are transactions that are unusual. Non-routine transactions everyone understands, like which do not arise in the normal course of business, like litigation claims, or litigation claims in a manufacturing entity giving loans, or let us say complex equity transactions. Due to either size, why non-routine transactions are unusual? It is either because of the size, nature, and that occur infrequently. Judgmental matters may include the development of accounting estimates for which there is a significant measurement uncertainty. So we understand that non-routine transactions and judgmental matters, basically estimates and non-routine transactions, these things have a significant risk. Okay. In context of significant risk, explain the factors to be considered by auditor in exercising the judgment as to which risks are significant risk. So when you look at the first 4 or 5 lines, you are like, oh my god, what is going to be there over here? Oh my god. But then you realize that they are simply asking you the list of significant risk over here. So if you remember, we have discussed fraud, Oscar, risk of fraud, risk of transactions outside the normal course of business, S for subjectivity involved, C for complexity, A for accounting developments, R for related parties. So let us see what they have done over here. Which risks are significant risk? Fraud, Oscar. All right. So I'll just show it to you. Outside the normal course of business, subjectivity, complexity, A for accounting developments, and R for related parties. That's it. All right. So the mind should get triggered whenever I say which risk are significant risk. Then in that case, the point is fraud, Oscar. Next. So last 2 lines you have to be always careful, Next. Explain in detail. So it's not an example question. ROMM may be greater for significant non-routine transaction arising from matters such as complex calculations. Also, ROMM may be greater for judgmental matters, correct? Arising from matters such as accounting principles, estimates. Explain in detail. Now tell them that why risk is greater for non-routine transactions, or why risk is greater for judgmental matters. No. Because management intervenes over here. There is a manual intervention, complex calculations. The nature are such that there could be a problem. I have discussed this in my in-house videos explaining the points. And I've marked this as one of the important points also in chapter 4, risk assessment and internal control. So as you see, they are also focusing on these areas. Be careful. So what I see is that they have included many such points which are actually there in the new modules which were released in the last year end, 2020 year end. So if you are, let us say, a November 20 student or so, and if you have studied from old modules, then you may feel like, oh my god, what is going on over here? No, because they have included many new points in the new modules which were issued after that and which were made applicable from July 21 attempt onwards. And be careful. All right. So they are just giving all the points over here. Next. Explain clearly the difference between internal financial controls and internal controls over financial reporting. So what is an internal financial control? What is internal control over financial reporting? What is the difference between them? You know that auditor is concerned with the controls which relate to financial statements and not with the overall internal control system of the entity. So those points need to be explained over here, giving the references. Auditor has to audit the internal financial controls with respect to financial reporting and express an opinion on that. That requirement is also there in Companies Act. So these are good discussions. These are basically the last ending points in chapter 4 module, which we have also discussed. All right. Okay. So be careful. Again, look at this internal financial control reporting requirement 143. Explain detail quoting specifically the law in above context and each and every aspect. So look at this 143 subsection 3 clause I. You will see that they have discussed it over here. Just a minute. Everything has been discussed over here. Naturally, because when I discuss in great details. So every single point I am not taking it up over here. Of course, if you have doubts, you can send it to me on the chat box. If you're my in-house students, you have these videos, you have the durations with you, you can watch it out. I'm telling you that in chapter 4, the last discussions were with respect to this particular points. If you are not my in-house students and looking at this video, stay connected with me. You can ask your doubts, stay connected with my YouTube channel, and you are going to get a lot of content in this October and November month before you go for your December 21 attempt. Don't worry about it. All right. Then there are questions on chapter 5 where they are saying that detection of manipulation of accounts. So basically manipulation of accounts which is done by the management. Explain why they do this normally, of course to evade the tax or to attract the investors, all right, or to declare the dividend when there are inadequate profits, or to not declare the dividend when there are adequate profits. These are the reasons given in the module. You can write some more reasons also that why management manipulates the financial statements, all right. And then there is a discussion on misappropriation of assets. Explain the variety of ways by which misappropriation of assets can be achieved. So that discussion is there. Stealing of the assets, theft, stealing, all those points, using the entity's assets for personal use, whatever normally employees do. All right. Then we have audit in automated environment. I know that when it comes to audit in an automated environment, you should prepare in such a manner that you know the head points, sub points. That is how you're supposed to do it. And that is how I've done in my videos also. All right. So what is the relevance of IT in audit? And what are the various risks in IT? Risk in IT is a very basic discussion which students can write it on their own also, like unauthorized access, unauthorized changes, data failure, data systems not updated, all the risk. All right. Audit sampling. When you are designing an audit sample, auditor should consider the purpose of the sample and characteristics of the population, explain in detail. So explain them about design, selection and size of the sample. So not a very straightforward question of explaining in detail. You have to explain this with examples to them, that when you are designing a sample, first purpose of the procedure, second characteristics of the population, define what will be a deviation or misstatement. So all detailed discussions, when it comes to audit sampling. Next, considering the characteristics of the population from which sample will be drawn, the auditor may determine stratification or value-weighted selection. Guide the auditor on the use of stratification and value-weighted selection. So you know that stratification is dividing the population into groups, and value-weighted selection is selecting based upon the value involved. So the selection chance depends upon the value of the unit. There are 3, 3, 4, 4 points each under stratification and value-weighted selection that needs to be taken care of, which we have discussed in the videos also. All right. When I say discussed in the videos, means the videos which are already given to my in-house students. For the students not in-house, there are some revision videos which are going to come up covering the module question bank and stuff on the YouTube channel. So stay connected, please. I'm just giving you a brief of all the questions that are over here. Then chapter 8, analytical procedures. All right. Explain giving examples. Okay. So explain giving examples of the relationships. That means the ratios, comparisons, explain them giving the examples, like the relationship between financial, non-financial data like salary, wages, comparing it with the number of employees, number of laborers. Okay. Analysis by computation of ratios includes study of relationships between financial statement amounts. State commonly used ratios. Very creative question. Just state them, the commonly used ratios. I think in 18th question you will not struggle at all. All right. Okay. So we have reached up till here, just showing you the quantum of content that is possible. So I think this question at all you are not going to struggle. Then how will you verify the items given while conducting audit of an entity? Whenever they talk about audit of specific items, you are supposed to write some unique documents which you will verify for that. Then the accounting treatment which is to be given. What are the disclosures for that particular item? What are the audit techniques that you will use? So document accounting treatment, accounting principle, disclosures, and what are the audit techniques that you will use for verifying it, and you get your marks. But provided you write some unique stuff with respect to documents and stuff. All right. So naturally, for my in-house students, you have the textbooks, and where we have given the content for these items, what you are supposed to write. For again the students not in-house, you are going to get a lot of revision content, so don't worry about it. Stay connected. October and November month, I have not kept a lot of afternoon and evening commitments in my regular course lectures because I'm dedicating that time to December 21 attempt students. All right. Next, APQ Limited deals in real estate and classifies all of its land holding under current assets as inventory. The same is therefore valued at cost or market value, whichever is lower. How would you verify profit and loss arising on sale of plots of land by such a dealer? So again, an accounting concept which you need to put off. You can just read this answer and automatically you'll understand, or even without reading the answer, you can understand it. But it's not only about the accounting concept, it's about how you will verify. So for that particular treatment, what are the documents that you will check and stuff. Next, company audit discussions. Oh, come on. Disqualification. What is the meaning of the word business relationship and what is excluded from that word business relationship? Then auditors' right to obtain information and explanation from officers of the company. And then reporting requirements for clause 1 fixed assets in CARO 2016. Company audit, I know the students are very much aware about it. They like it a lot. Then in audit report, they have discussions on key audit matters. What are the factors to be considered? There are 3 points in this, the factors to be considered for determining key audit matters, but you should be very well aware about the concept of key audit matters to write those factors. All right. And then what should be the kind of audit report that statutory auditor of the company should issue in this case? Now look at this. Delightful Limited is a company engaged in the production of smiley balls. During the financial year 2021, the company transferred its accounts to computerized system SAP from manual system of accounts. Since the employees of the company are not well versed with the SAP system, there were many errors in the accounting during the transition period. So company has shifted the accounting system and the company was not aware about the new accounting system. That is why there were lots of errors. As such, statutory auditors of the company were not able to extract correct data and reports from the system. Such data was not available manually also, so sufficient and appropriate audit evidence is not available over here. Further, the employees and the management of the company were not supportive in providing the requisite information. So basically, sufficient and appropriate audit evidence is not available even after trying a lot. So this is creating a limitation on scope of audit. Now this can either lead to a qualified opinion or disclaimer of opinion, but in this particular case, look at this. The auditor believes that the possible effect could be material and pervasive. So forget about qualified. This could lead to disclaimer of opinion, qualified opinion, adverse opinion, disclaimer. If you are still struggling with these discussions, you need a detailed video on audit report and audit opinion, which you will keep on finding in my YouTube channel also. All right. So you will see that they have given a disclaimer of opinion. All right, discussing the case study. Next, bank audit. In bank audit, straight away module question they have printed about the engagement team discussions that need to be done over here and what are the benefits of such discussion. So that's not a big problem. Okay. Next, they want you to explain specifically the benefits of such discussion. Next, audit of interest expense. This is there in the last stages of bank audit. Audit of various items. In that we have this discussion of audit of interest expense. Explain what should be your audit approach and procedure in regard to this audit of interest expense. There are 4 to 5 points specifically for audit of interest expense. Then audit of different types of entities. This question has been asked repeatedly. It is also there on my government audit video, which is there separately in my YouTube channel. Objective of audit of local bodies. Now, when auditor is conducting audit of local bodies, what is his purpose? What are the objectives? And then when you are planning the audit of NGO, both of them module questions. Planning the audit of NGO, what are the points to be considered? All right, so understanding that NGO, it's all its mission, vision, objectives and stuff. All right, so students, yes, it's a very good and interesting RTP. Testing a lot of questions over here also. In theory questions, again, every single question I have not discussed in the RTP because it's all of a sudden I can't pick concepts from here and there and just discuss in a video. So if you have issues, you can stay connected with me. You can use my app chat box to ask the doubts. All right. Okay. And for my in-house students, we keep on conducting Zoom sessions. So please ensure that you ask doubts in those live Zoom sessions. Thank you so much. So this is my discussion for December 21 RTP. Preparation videos, strategy videos, everything will keep coming. Just stay connected on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much.